Hey guys, let's talk about tonight's pretty amazing episode of Scandal. Wow, where do I start? I mean, I guess I just have to go from start to finish. We start off the episode and Fitz is calling Olivia because Olivia gave Fitz some hope at the end of last week's episode. She basically told him that there was a chance for her and Fitz, and so he's calling her every night to make good on that promise. And she pretty much isn't having any of it right now. First of all, she wants to know if Jake is eating. She wants to know if he's being taken care of. She wants to know if he's getting sunlight. And she's pretty adamant that she's not going to have a conversation with Fitz until she knows what's going on with Jake in super maximum prison. So from there, we move on to Quinn, who goes to the Winslow home to question the father of Caitlin, who is one of the daughter that died. And we found out in last week's episode that they were hiding something, and the reason that these girls are dying is because they grabbed a folder filled with pictures of Olivia Pope. Yeah. So when Quinn questions Mr. Winslow, he says you can't stop what's coming and then blows his brains out. I mean, that is just the start of the episode, people. Now, we don't get much follow-up on that until the very end when Quinn and Huck tell Olivia about the photos. And the only reason why they told her was because his body was found. So they knew that it was going to come out in the news. So Olivia was going to find out eventually. So they figured they might as well come clean, show her the photos that they had. And now, of course, Olivia is wondering who is trying to surveillance her. What do they want? What is going on? So the other thing that was happening in this week's episode was Abby's ex-husband was running for senator. And why was this happening? Because one of the senators that resigned, some crazy video footage of him leaked out with him in a diaper. Just so disturbing. And enter Abby's ex-husband. And we all know from season 1 that Abby's ex abused her quite violently, and he was now running for senator. And it was absolutely heartbreaking to see that scene when, after she sees him, she sees Trip, is what she calls him, I believe, for the first time, and she's basically quivering in her boots. Cyrus is aware that she knows him, but I don't think he's aware of everything that happened between the two of them. And when she sees him for the first time in the Oval Office, Abby is definitely shook. And the next scene that we see her is she's in her office, she's under her desk, she's shaking, she's crying, and Olivia arrives with a garment bag, and she brought a couple of outfits for her because after she left the White House or the Oval Office, she threw up, and she threw up on herself, and it was just horrible because she is beside herself. She can't put two and two, like she can't even form a sentence. She's so distraught that this ex who abused her so violently, almost killed her, is now going to be a senator, or could be. And Fitz has, endorsed him. So this just makes all the matters worse. And of course, Olivia says, you need to tell everybody who he is. And she's like, listen, the president to you is your ex-boyfriend. To us, he is like this ideal, like he's like the idea of somebody that is beyond who they, your imagination. Like he's the president, and you can't just go up to him and be like, hey, the guy that you're endorsing used to beat me. Like it just can't happen. And so that scene was just so heartbreaking. And to see Olivia say, what is it that you want? And then to see her go and try to rally behind this other potential woman who's going to run for the Senate seat as well and back her campaign free of charge was pretty awesome. So, this was sort of a little bit, not really the case of the week, but kind of the case of the week because there was so much going on that, this was a nice little distraction for Olivia to take on this campaign and be her campaign manager and to try to reinvent this woman, give her a makeover. And then I loved the fact that they used her daughter for her ad campaign because the woman was so bad at it, and they used their daughter to pretty much sell her, and that was pretty awesome. But like I said, this was definitely the C storyline because there was a whole lot going on in this episode. So we had this very awesome interaction between Olivia and David Rosen when she was asking him to get her access into this maximum state prison, this supermax prison. And he was like, look, it's supermax for a reason. You know, Jeffrey Dahmer was held there. You can't just show up there. And he's like, I'm not going to let you see Jake. And she's like, what makes you think I'm going to go see Jake? And that is not who she went to see. She went to see Tom. And we all know that Tom is away in prison because he has confessed to killing the president's son. So let me just tell you, this scene between Tom and Olivia was outstanding. And I had to watch it like 3 times. It was just so good. And one of the things that, you know, Tom says right off the beginning, he's staring at her and he says, I'm sorry, I apologize for staring, but I've never really looked at you. And he's like, because I've always been in the room, but I've never been in the room. I'm always like, you know, seeing you from the corner of my eye and you're beautiful. And he says, why did you leave my president? You know, you left him when he needed you the most. And he reveals all this information to Olivia, and he calls her Helen of Troy, and he says, your face is the face that launched 1,000 ships, and that my president and Jake and command all love you, and, you know, I could protect the president, but I couldn't protect him from you. And it was crazy. This conversation was so good. And he even reveals that after Olivia left to go to the island with Jake, the president went to her home and he got a key from the super and he went in there, and he just went in there by himself, and then they heard this noise, and then he went in there. He's like, he wasn't crying. It was just a sound that I couldn't even explain. And you basically, you killed him. And then he reveals that he tried to kill himself. And Olivia is hearing all of this for the first time. And we heard this back, I think, in the first episode. Melly throws it in Fitz's face that he tried to kill himself. So when he brings this up to Olivia, she's completely devastated to hear this. And again, he's like, you destroyed him. And, you know, your face is the face that launched 1,000 ships. And he says it again, you're beautiful. And, you know, how's it that you have all this power over all these men? It was so good, this scene. It was so good. And then at the end, she basically, and the other part in that conversation that was so good was when he asks if Command ordered her to leave. And she says, Command doesn't order me to do, or my father doesn't order me to do anything. He's like, oh, you think you have a father, don't you? He's like, you don't have a father, you have Command. And he has been Command your whole entire life. And little if you didn't know, like, you've been raised by this man and you've always been basically following orders. You're basically just a minion. You're a soldier in his army. And it was just brilliant. And he says to her, like, basically at the end of the whole conversation, he's like, she says that, once again, like, who ordered you to kill Jake? And she's in his face and she says, you are basically a loose end right now and my father will have you killed. And he once again says that Jake is the person who ordered him to kill the president's son. So, you know, as powerful as that scene was, she was not able to break Tom, which I thought was very interesting. So we move on from that scene and we get another conversation that is, once again, just beyond words. And that is the conversation between her father and Olivia. And he's in her apartment, and maybe I should say this first. Olivia calls Fitz and they have a conversation about what Tom told her. And she brings up the fact that Tom told her that he tried to kill himself. And there's this huge pause, and Fitz doesn't want to talk about it, and he wants to talk about what does "there's hope for the two of them" really mean. And then he decides to go into this very descriptive scene about how he would make love to Olivia. And I was like, hello. It was really good. Yeah. And then at the end of that scene, okay, I don't need to go into detail, word for word, what Fitz was saying, but let's just say Olivia was naked, there was a desk involved, and there was a lot of kissing, and she would know what she tasted like. I was like, too much information. And at the end of it, it was the perfect ending to that scene because he hangs up the phone, or she starts getting all hot and bothered, and she's like, and then what? And he's like, well, it depends on, what "there's hope" really means. And then he hangs up the phone, and she just like slumps herself back in the bed, and you're like, yeah, girl, you and me both. That scene, too much. Every scene in this episode was just too good. So after that, we get Command in Olivia's apartment, and here is the face-off between Olivia and Papa Pope. And he basically, attacks her for going to, first of all, for trying to get in the way of Jake getting death. And now he's onto her about going to see Tom, and that she can't get in the way, and that if it's, her versus Command will win. And it is a frightening scene between the two of them, because at the end of the day, that is your child. Okay, Command, that is your daughter. And he is just frightening. And he's telling her all the things that he's done to protect her. And, at the end of it, you're just like, you're a sad, sad man. You really are. And he leaves the apartment, and she's just, terrified. But, Olivia has a little trick up her sleeve as well, and we'll get to that in a minute. So we also had some interesting stuff with Leo, and if y'all remember, Leo was in season 3, and he was helping with the vice president, trying to get her elected as president, and he was actually representing Abby's ex. And back in season 3, there was some serious flirting going on between Abby and Leo, and that continued in this week's episode. And I really actually like the two of them together. And after Abby's crazy ex-husband corners her in the parking lot, she pulls out a gun, and she basically says, look, I'll kill you. And I love that she was willing to stand up for herself, because he was trying to threaten her once again and act like he was just, got a little, how can I say it? He was basically saying that he was a little angry a couple times back in the day. And it's like, dude, you beat the crap out of your wife. So enough of that. And she pulls the gun, and she threatens that she will kill him, and he scurries off. And so there's a conversation that Leo and Abby have where she basically says, congratulations, the man that you are, basically trying to get elected for senator, I had my mouth wired shut. I still have pain in my collarbone and this and that. She's like describing all of the things that this man did to her, and she's like, congrats, you win. And he leaves, and it turns out that he decided to leak that information, and he is now no longer running. So that was actually pretty cool. And then he kisses Abby, which I kind of liked, because I think that they're really cute. I like David, but, I'm all for Abby getting a new little boo. So as terrified as she was, and as damaged as she is, moving forward in her relationships because of her ex, I wouldn't mind seeing her and Leo have a little fling, because that would be cute. We also got a little update on Cyrus and his little sexcapades, and he leaked some information on purpose to his little lover to see if it would get out. And at the end of the episode, it did. So I believe Cyrus now is fully aware that his little romp is becoming more of a problem than pleasure. So I have a feeling he'll be handling that situation very quickly. We also had Melly back in true form in this episode, and I like that confrontation that she had with Fitz at the end, where he tried to call her out on making these statements that were kind of off book. And she was like, listen, I've been supporting you for the last 20 years. And because I had, 2 months of grief that I was dealing with, you tried to call me Smelly Melly and you tried to put me down here and there. But now I'm back and you're going to have to deal with it. And then the phone rings and it's Olivia and she's like, oh, here's a Fitz for you. And she's like, it's Olivia. And she just walks away. And, it's sort of a combination between what happened last week with, I believe her name was Bitsy, the wife of the former president, and now the conversation that she had earlier on in the episode with Lizzie Bear, that she's starting to get her mojo back and she is becoming the Melly that we all know and love, and it's great to see. So, towards the end of the episode, we see Tom get shanked in the prison. And Olivia called it, but we didn't realize was that Olivia orchestrated the shanking. Listen, she may be Olivia Pope, but she definitely is the daughter of Command. So she has learned a trick or two from her father, and she orchestrated that so that he would then admit to having Command order the hit on Fitz's son, and she recorded the whole thing. So now the president is fully aware that Command is the one who ordered the assassination of his son. And like he said, that Fitz took his daughter from him, so he took his son from him. Oh, wow. It's going to be good, guys. And then, of course, we had Huck continuing to play video games with his son. And at the end, the son shows up at Pope and Associates. And he basically comes and says, I know you're my dad, and I want to know why you left. So that's happened too. So everything is pretty much out in the open now. Olivia is aware that someone's stalking her, taking pictures of her. And how could I forget the very last scene of the episode? So after all of it is revealed, the president knows that Command is behind everything. We see Jake is obviously released out of supermax prison, and he has arrived in the bunker, and he sees Olivia, and she says, hi. And then all of a sudden you see Fitz from behind Jake, and he says hi. And it's like, here we are, the three of us all together in this bunker. Yeah. Guys, this episode was amazing. There are just no other words. It was so good. And I cannot wait to see what happens next week. Scandal is in true season 1-2 form, and I am so, so happy. All right, guys, let me know what you thought of this week's episode, and I'll see you next week. Leave a comment down below, like, and subscribe. All right, bye, guys.